Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Boardroom. I'm honored today to be joined by Steve Sanghi. Steve Sanghi is one of the most consequential leaders inside of the global semiconductor space. He led the transformation of Microchip technology, a company that was losing nearly $10 million in annual revenue, into a semiconductor powerhouse that is generating roughly $8 billion in annual revenue today. But what makes his story especially powerful is that this transformation was not just financial, it was cultural. From growing up in northern India to immigrating to the United States in 1976, and from a decade at Intel to leading a company that many people had written off, Steve's journey is both deeply personal and profoundly instructive. Through decades of change, he built Microchip into a company that is built by trust, inclusion, and long-term thinking. Steve, it is such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Steve. Now, Steve, I want to just go ahead and jump into a little bit about your journey, right? So you have had an incredibly successful career, and I kind of just want to get a little bit into about that journey and sort of how you were able to navigate that. So when you joined Microchip back in 1990, the company was quite literally on the brink of bankruptcy, and many people would have seen that issue and walked away. What made you approach that problem and think that it was even something that could be solved?
Well, I had looked at the company about a year before I joined. I was at another company and I came to Microchip to conduct due diligence on a proposal where Microchip would merge with another company. And I was advising that company, and I looked at its technology, manufacturing capacity, financials, and others, and made a recommendation that this other company's technology together with Microchip's manufacturing capability would actually make a very good combination. But we were not able to sell that deal. There were some venture capitalists on both sides, and each side's venture capitalists wanted two-thirds of the joint company, and that kind of deal can't work. We were not able to sell a 50-50 deal. So the deal broke. And by the time I came to Microchip, it was almost a year later, and the company had very substantially deteriorated. It had burned all the $12 million cash it had from the venture capitalists, and the company was really in fairly bad shape. Since we didn't do the technology deal with this other company, the company didn't have the right technology to go forward. It had manufacturing available, but manufacturing was building older products at very low gross margin and losing money. So, by the time I came to the company, I actually didn't know the exact condition of the company. They pretty much hid it from me. I thought the condition of the company was what I saw about a year ago, but the condition had substantially deteriorated. So once I joined the company, and I looked at, the inside the company, then I learned that condition was a lot worse, even worse than a year ago. Some of the things were hidden, and we didn't completely find out. So, but now I had already left my other job. I had come to Microchip. I had moved my family, and then I just decided to dig in and turn the company around and make the best of what we had, and we did.
Wow, that's an amazing story, and I can't imagine how difficult that would have been, right? Just coming in. So, can you kind of talk us through a really important decision, whether that be like a very uncomfortable decision that you had to make early on, where you kind of had to deal with some of the problems that were happening, and set the tone as soon as you came in?
So there were lots of different ones. There were choice on technology, choice on products, choice on manufacturing, choice on executive team, choice on culture. So there were just lots of difficult choices we made. We were, the company was largely building commodity memory products and selling them at very low gross margin. The best way to describe commodity memory product is you're trying to sell ice to Eskimos, and Eskimos don't buy ice. Um, so, a major decision was to move the direction of the company to take our memory technology, but build microcontrollers with it, which will be higher value added products. That obviously was very unpopular with the memory VP, and he ended up leaving the company. It was a major transition to where the resources will go. The choice of technology to move the technology forward was another choice. We hired a outside team to come into the company and help us advance the technology. The culture choice was a very major one. The culture of the company was really flawed. So, we put a group of people together representing every different group in the company and came up with what we value. And we came up with 11 guiding values. That was back in 1990. And those guiding values were, quality comes first, customers are our focus, continuous improvement is important, employees are our greatest strength, growth and profitability provided for everything we do, communication is vital, professional ethics are practiced, distributors, and representatives are our partners. So these were some of the guiding values, and Microchip was not following any of the values. Ethics were terrible, communication was terrible. People didn't know, we didn't make profits, so people didn't relate to profits. There was no continuous improvement in the company. So we had to build a major cultural change and brought somebody from outside to train people on statistical process control. And then we formed, 60 different continuous improvement teams. And these were multifunctional teams. One team was improving time to market, another was improving cost, another was improving yield, and other ones were improving collecting money from our customers faster. Another one was working on paying our vendors slowly,
Yeah.
trying to liberate cash. And we characterize people with, three kinds of people. The first kind were the ones who were making things happen. They were getting involved in continuous improvement and taking my direction and moving forward aggressively to move the company forward. And these are the people we wanted, but we had a second class of people that will be wait and see. In a meeting, when I'm giving a direction, they will put an elbow to the guy next door and say, well, he would be gone like, a bunch of other executives, in a year or so. We don't have to do any of this. So they kind of had a wait and see attitude and had a very poor commitment to the company. And the third kind were people that just they were wondering what happened. They were just not engaged at all. And the formula for success was changing rapidly and they couldn't keep pace, with the company. So there was a fair amount of retooling of people, human resources, to get the right people on the bus to move the company forward. And the result of all that was very, very good. Within a year, we made the company profitable, raised new money, and less than 3 years later, I think we took the company public in a very highly successful public offering. And then the market value of the company went up 10x in the first year after public offering.
That's incredible. And I think something you really touched about there, just the focus on people, right? That's such an important thing to have in a company, especially when you're leading it. So you definitely came to a point where it was so difficult to manage a lot of these different people. But when you're going through that process of hiring and promoting different people, what did you particularly look for in whether it was a characteristic or a mindset in all of these individuals that you're like, okay, I know that this person is going to be a successful leader down the line?
So, we needed people that, and when we hired people, we showed them our guiding values and we asked them about their reaction to the values. We were not looking for superstars either. We were looking for people that could, work with the other people in a team environment and continuously improve things and go forward. Versus people who would be prima donnas and they'll put other people down and they may be self superstars, but nobody would help them and nobody would work with them and they'll piss off everybody else. So these people can be sometimes superstars, but they have very poor output.
Yeah.
So we needed people that will work in a cohesive environment with the others and lift everybody up to really make progress. So we were looking for these kind of people. Actually, in my book, both of my books, actually all three of my books, have this employee output equation in them, which says expected employee output is equal to their individual experience, knowledge, and skills. Of course, those are important, plus their rate of improvement times their ability to adapt to our environment. And if the person is a hot shot, who could be a 9 on a scale of 10 in the individual skills, but they exhibit very poor rate of improvement and they add negatively to the environment because they piss off everybody, then their overall output isn't very good. And if you compare it to another employee, and you could scroll through the book and find that equation. If you take an employee who's even like a 7 or a 8 rather than 9 or a 10 in individual skills and knowledge, but they have a very high rate of improvement and they add very positively to the overall environment. So if you give them, 8 on the individual skills, plus 90% on the rate of improvement, plus 100% on the contribution to the environment, the total score you get is like about 18.
Yeah.
Versus another guy who could be 9 or a 10 on individual contribution, but they get a negative score on the second half of the equation, so the total score is only 8. So we taught people that it's the second half of the equation which is as important as the first half, which is their individual skills and knowledge.
I think that's so important, just being able to establish that framework, just to kind of
Uh,
know what to expect in people early on. So I think that's something that's incredibly unique. And Steve's book has many incredible insights in it as well. And I'll go ahead and link that in this video for everyone to check out too. Now, Steve, I want to ask you about kind of your energy allocation, right? As such an important leader inside of a company, is there, looking back inside all the things that you did, is there some things that you wished you would have spent a little bit more time focusing on rather than what you did previously inside of the company?
no, I think I ran the company for 31 years. I didn't have any regrets. I think we managed through, Asian financial crisis in 97, 98. We managed through, the tech bust, the Y2K in 2000, 2001, 2002. We managed through global financial crisis in 2007, 2008, 2009 timeframe. We managed through COVID. So, we managed through many cycles. I did about 25 acquisitions over the course of my career, all very successful. Took the company from a $10 million market value to $44 billion market value by the time I, stepped down in 2021, March of 21. And then the worst decision I ever made really was the choice of my successor. And my successor became the CEO, and then we had terrible subsequent few years. And by the late part of last year, the company was hemorrhaging, and we lost 93% of our profit and 60% of our sales from the top. And then the successor I had chosen decided to step down, retire, and board asked me to come back last November. So I've been back a year now and turned the company back in the right direction. Operating profits, earnings per share have quadrupled, and operating profit have doubled, and gross margin has risen, and sales are rising again. So we're in our second renaissance.
Yeah, I think that's super amazing, right? And so you just talked about a lot of the different things that Microchip has gone through, all these different recessions, financial crises. So when everything is really comes to a point where it feels uncertain, right? What sort of anchors you personally as a leader to keep going, and how are you able to project confidence in all the things that you're able to do?
Well, one is the guiding values. So, when the times are bad, values become even more important.
Absolutely.
And values are the North Star. They are the beacon that keep you on track. But the second is strategy and judgment. There is just, that just comes with experience. And if you pick the wrong strategy, you can have, all the values and you will not reach the destination. And if your judgment is wrong, you made a lot of bad decisions, then that wouldn't really work either. So that just comes with, we made a decision by taking a lot of inputs from inside and outside, and with the advice of our team and the board, and we made a lot of good decisions over 31 years, and the company became successful. And I think my successor didn't make some good decisions, and the company did terrible.
Of course, Steve. And I think that's your whole journey is so incredible, right? And so I kind of want to delve into the student side of it a little bit because you have a lot of knowledge that I think students can derive from. So nowadays, students coming out of college, they feel enormous pressure to perform and kind of get everything right early. So if you had to simplify it, what would you tell these early professionals to optimize for their first 5 or first 10 years inside of their careers?
So I think one of the most important thing, especially if the student is going into engineering, but it doesn't have to be engineering, if they're going in business, they're going in marketing, they're going anywhere. I think it's, getting some sort of co-op job, during the summer in their third year, and final year, junior year and senior year. If they can get a job with a company, then they get a experience of real life, what the work environment looks like. And you figure out for yourself, no matter how much somebody tells you, you figure out, where you're good at, where you're not good at, and what you got to do, and you get a feel for the work environment. I think co-op is probably one of the most important thing a person can do, and I would suggest everybody does that. And beyond that, there are lots of other things. Work environment is made of teams. There are new product teams, there are cost reduction teams, there are time to market teams, there are, putting up, there are all sorts of teams in the company, and there's a much, much less individual work. When the student comes from college, all they have done is individual work.
Yeah.
And so they're very good individually, but many times students coming from college are not very good team players. And the best experience an engineering student gets on a team player is working with his lab partner, which is not a whole lot. Um, Teamwork is very different than individual. And, we want people to be individually knowledgeable, have good grades, and done good work. And I wouldn't want to, replace that. But really, teamwork is very important. And teamwork entails, prioritizing the work and output of the team, well above your own ambition and your own work. The people who are good team players are often the people who have played sports in college, and not the tennis, which is an individual sport, but like a soccer or a football, or team
Yeah.
sports. Those people are very good team sports, but a lot of engineers are not on those team sports. They just don't have the time. Engineering is very hard work. So I think, people need to create opportunities to be part of a team so they learn, and co-op environment allows them to learn that too. The other thing I would say is communication skills, both written and oral. Many times the only experience an engineer has is really writing some technical jargon, for other technical types.
Yeah.
And they can't express themselves many times. There's the old Dilbert cartoon really makes fun of engineers. You've seen it over the years. But I think there is some truth in the implied criticism. Engineers often don't communicate well. They can't express themselves in an audience, and they're the nerdy type. And so I think getting some opportunities to be able to express themselves, building written communication and oral skills will advance them in their career better, in the company. Not a very long time passes in a company, could be only a month or two, when you have to stand up in front of an audience, your team, and present your idea, make a presentation using slides. And And very often the first impression is better be good one. And many engineers do terrible at it. So I think those are some of the opportunities engineers should find to learn to express themselves, improve their written and oral communication skills, improve their teamwork skills, and get some exposure to the job environment through co-oping. I think those are some of the things I would highlight.
That's amazing. And I think with the work experience that you highlighted, right? Of course, there's this whole idea of mentorship, and I think I saw a quote. It's like there's only one cheat code to life, and that's going to be through mentorship because that kind of gives you all the tools that you need to go through
Mhm.
life, right? So, what have you seen people kind of do to take that step towards finding mentors and building those lasting relationships? Because a lot of times students try to find a mentor, but it's hard for them to keep that relationship and maintain it throughout a very long period of time. So, how have you
So
seen people
we
do that?
assign, when we hire new college grads, we assign mentors to them, who shows them the path and they can go talk to mentor when they have, a challenge, not technical challenge. Usually you'll go to your supervisor, but, a challenge in the work environment, you're having trouble adjusting or, you move from Massachusetts to Arizona, you're missing home and you need somebody to talk to. So we usually often assign mentor, but people can find their own mentors and then how they take advantage of that mentor and keep relationship with him or her is kind of sort of up to them, I think. But I think we have human resources that, gets input after 6 months. How is it going? And, we kind of re-interview people a year to see how you're adjusting and if you have any, challenges, what kind of help we can provide. So, that's company tries to do that to ensure that we keep people that we hire.
Absolutely. I resonate with that a lot. And Steve, we've kind of talked about mentorship, about leadership, about the transformation that you've made. But when it's all said and done, your chapter for Microchip, what do you hope people will say about the legacy that you've left behind at the company?
Well, I hope people, say that I built a, great company and left very strong roots and a company that can continue to go forward without me and win. I failed at my first attempt. My worst decision actually was, to step down and give a job to a successor who I poorly judged that he was ready and he wasn't. So I need to do a better job second time. And sometimes I say I'm just going to keep working now and go with my boots on because I couldn't find the right successor. But really, either I find the right successor or find another exit strategy for the company or leave it in the hands of somebody. Um, that's what I'm looking for.
That's amazing. And Steve, one last piece of advice that you have, if you had to give it to the next generation of students, what would that be?
I think I think every generation sees a generation challenge in their life. Our grandparents didn't understand my parents. My parents didn't understand me. My kids didn't understand, me, and their kids won't understand them. So every generation, the culture changes, how people think changes, how people process things changes. And today's culture is just totally different. People have so much information. They're growing in the information age. Kids have phones, access to internet, all this kind of stuff. And, things that our generation learned over time, today, much younger generation is learning all these things that we didn't learn for quite a while. So I just think, especially if you're a leader in a company, you have to find a way to relate to each generation. How I relate to a 50-year-old today is totally different than how I relate to a 25-year-old. They think differently. A 50-year-old, when they need some instructions, they go to a manual. A 25-year-old, Googles it or goes to Chat GPT to find the answer to the question. People learn differently. People find information differently. And, And our customers are growing too. Our average decision maker engineer today is, 55, 60 years old. He grew up in our generation. How we sold to him, how we became successful with that engineer making a selection to choose Microchip is totally different than how a 25-year-old is going to choose. So
Absolutely.
when that 25-year-old becomes 50-year-old and he's a leader of a group, if he haven't figured out a way to get information in his hands the way he finds information, we're not going to succeed as a company. So that's a major transformation we're trying to make right now, and having the company be, first and foremost in social media, people be able to find company information with, large language models, um, you know, um, AI productivity and all that kind of stuff, is really just foremost right now.
Wow, Steve, that's a great piece of information, and thank you so much for walking us through your career journey as well as advice for the next generation of students. I'm sure that there's so much that students can derive from this conversation, and I greatly appreciate your time. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
All the best to you.